The Heavenly Demon. Can't Live a Normal Life. By Sanchin. Chapter 75. The Southern Training Center. Part 1. 10 days after leaving Dmitri, Roman arrived at the starting point of the Southern Front. There were no lords in that land, and a little village was made up by people who wished to trade with soldiers heading into the battlefield. They entered an inn to rest their weary bodies before proceeding to the training center. "We'll spend the day here today before heading to the training center at sunrise tomorrow." Yes. Everyone was bright. Actually, they didn't expect to have such good accommodations. Usually, nobles gave shabby places to their soldiers, but Roman had rented a large and neat inn for them to rest. It was a situation in which showing loyalty was inevitable. The soldiers moved inside quickly, excited. Roman also went in to unpack. He then read a letter he had received a month earlier while seated in the chair. "I heard that you are heading to perform military duty. If you say you are mine, I will solve the problem right away. Still, I will not stop you as I know you want to devote yourself to the nation. Nevertheless, I cannot let anyone who might become mine get hurt in such a barren place. I have used my connections at the Southern Front. Always bear in mind that the Benedict family will always be there for you if you ever need assistance." Last few months, Roman was persistently courted by Marquis Benedict. As the head of the nobility, he wanted to take Roman away and use him to fight the royal knights and take over the entire kingdom of Cairo. He valued the youngest ranker in the Cairo kingdom. Roman had already rejected Marquis Benedict, but he still wanted to use affection to win him over. Even Roman being deployed to the Southern Front was done thanks to the connections of Marquis Benedict. As he said, compared to the Western Front, which directly confronted the Kronos Empire, the Southern Front was peaceful. Still, according to the information Roman learned till now, the truth was different. Makin of Valhalla said the Southern Front was a ticking time bomb that could explode soon. Roman didn't know that he would be deployed to the Southern Front at that time, but he still ordered Lucas to find the truth behind it. "In the end, I must go and see it myself." The information was true. And as he wasn't assigned a desk job, so considering he would be busy soon, Roman took a break. Nevertheless, Roman couldn't close his eyes for long. Thud. He could hear the sound of men yelling and fighting right below where he was staying. So, he went down to confirm and saw that a fight was indeed happening. "Kwang! You fucking bastards! Do you know who I am? I am Henry Albert, the second son of the Albert family. The descendant of the Cairo Kingdom's famous family wants to use this inn, but you fucking idiots whose origin isn't even known are saying that you will be staying here, and I need to endure this?" The situation was obvious at a single glance. It was a fight that was started by some other noble. Still, he had to confirm the facts, so Roman went to Chris. "What is going on?" "My liege." Chris was stunned. He, who had just been on the verge of explosion, reported all that had happened. The situation went like this. Thanks to Roman's consideration, the soldiers were just about to rest, but just then, the second son of the Albert family came in with his troops and then screamed for everyone to get out. This was the largest and cleanest inn in the area, so it was fine if he intended to use it, but there was no reason for everyone to leave. Furthermore, this isn't even a place to call ourselves the famous Albert family. It wasn't a nameless family. It was once a family that had a reputation for producing outstanding talents, but then it was crushed down by the other families that kept them in check when they were recklessly trying to expand their power. They were people who lived in the glory of the past. Still, it was a powerful enough force when compared to those in the northeast, but Roman's reaction wouldn't have been much different even if it was a famous family. "Why do we have to go out?" When he came forward, Henry's ferocious gaze turned toward Roman. "Are you their master?" "Yes." "Then please understand the situation. I don't know where you came from, but I, Henry Albert, will be using this inn. If you are in a position in which you will be going to the Southern Training Center, nothing good will come from getting into a fight with me. I will give you 10 minutes to get all of this trash out of my eyes." He was brave. It must have been because he was seeing the emblem of the Dmitri family for the first time. Henry Albert judged the opponent to be worthy and decided to behave himself a bit. Is this the reality of Dmitri? It was like a frog in the well. Dmitri was an absolute powerhouse only recognized in the Northeast. Naturally, the families in other regions did not recognize Dmitri, and there was no reason to treat an unknown family on par with other noble families. Most of the families deployed at the Southern Front were classified as powerful in the Cairo kingdom, so it was wise if one retreated without creating trouble. Nevertheless, Roman found Henry's eyes annoying. "I have no intention of emptying the inn. Anyway, there is an easy way to solve this situation." He changed his attitude. And as soon as he finished those words, he unsheathed his sword. "Pull out your sword. If you defeat me, I will gladly empty the inn." It was a provocative statement. How dare a mere noble below me act like this? This cannot be forgiven. Just when Henry was about to unsheath his sword, the knight next to him turned to Henry with a pale face and stopped him. "Lord, you need to stop right now. Your opponent is Roman Dmitri. He's the youngest swordsman to ever get into the rankings." As soon as he heard those words, Henry went stiff. Is this what it feels like to get goosebumps? Henry's eyes looked troubled as he was about to draw the sword. That guy is Roman Dmitri? Cairo's youngest ranker? There was no noble who didn't know about it. Since he was from a family that lived on the outskirts, it was natural that he didn't recognize the symbol of Dmitri, but the reputation of Roman was undoubtedly high. The fact that he was an unofficial ranker didn't even matter. As Valhalla themselves recognized Roman, there was no way the rumors could be false. "Pull your sword out," Roman urged him. Henry gulped at the sight of Roman waiting for him. "The moment I draw my sword, he will cut my head off." Among the rumors of Roman, there was also the mention of his involvement in Lawrence's war with Barco. Roman Dmitri, who had put his opponent into the corner, went over to the estate of Barco and killed his eldest son right before him. That incident had become quite famous. From then onward, he was known as a demon without blood and tears. Along with the rumors of him being the youngest ranker, the rumors showing how terrifying Roman was weren't left out. Those were the reasons Henry looked wary. Even though his pride was hurt, and even though he had never bowed to anyone in his life because of being from the Albert family, he had no choice but to swallow his pride in this situation in which his head would fly off the moment he drew his sword. If his opponent was truly Roman Dmitri, he had to avoid this confrontation no matter what his pride told him to do. He finally understood his arrogance wouldn't work here. Thus, Henry took a step back and said, I forgot I had some plans. I will take this as an apology and let this go. I think you are quite lucky. Why you, who dared to ignore the Albert family, tack. Just when Roman took a step forward, Henry panicked and ran out. Seeing the soldiers rushing out toward their master, who ran away, Roman laughed. Is this the reality of the Southern Front? The Southern Front was kind of a resort for the children of nobles. He now saw the reality with his own eyes. The case of Henry wasn't a one-time thing. That day itself, 3 similar incidents happened, but they all ran away when they heard the name Roman Dmitri. Seeing that situation, the innkeeper commented, "This is quite common here." Unlike the Western Front, which is constantly threatened by the Kronos Empire, the Southern Front has a peaceful relationship with the Hector Kingdom. So there is no danger here, and the sons of nobles who want to avoid actual military duty often come here. Maybe you can even call it a vacation for the nobles? The training is generous, and there is nothing like risking their lives when they head out. It is quite perfect for carrying out military duty in the name only. The Western Front and the Southern Front, even though they both were in the same nation, the situations were quite different. If the troops on the Western Front were those who risked their lives every day, those on the Southern Front didn't do much. As a result, there was turmoil when they were staying at the inn. Just like Henry, every noble who came to the Southern Front had lived their lives without any issues, so they thought they could act recklessly even if someone else had booked the inn in advance. It was funny. Despite not entering the training center yet, Roman already got to know about the reality of the Southern Front. Roman opened up a map. It had information related to the Southern Front, and each area was divided and detailed with information Lucas and the Information Guild had collected till now. 48 days ago, the recon troops of Hector Kingdom crossed the border. They checked the dynamics of the Southern Front and went back, but after that, they came back and checked again 3 times. It is not clear what their intention is yet. However, based on the bits of information I found, the Southern Front isn't as safe as it is said to be. There were the signs of war, such as the warning from Valhalla and the Hector Kingdom scouting out the Southern Front. It didn't mean that there would definitely be a war, but it didn't mean there was no possibility of it either. Just for that reason, Roman trained his soldiers even more intensely. He would pass the time in peace if a war didn't break out in the 2 years he had to stay here, but he had to be prepared for the worst possibility nonetheless. Most of the people at the Southern Front weren't prepared for war, neither mentally nor physically. Unlike the rest of the army, who weren't prepared, Roman and his men had trained hellishly for the past few months. If a war really broke out, they had no intention of trusting the scum relaxing on the Southern Front. They would survive and lay the groundwork for the future themselves. War. The tip of Roman's nose suddenly felt a familiar smell of blood. Chapter 76. The Southern Training Center. Part 2. The next day, Roman entered the Southern Training Center as scheduled. It was a basic procedure everyone had to do before being put on the battlefield. Thus, Roman and other nobles appeared with their soldiers. The faces of the nobles didn't look good. It was because none of them had enlisted voluntarily. If their loyalty to the nation was that great, they would have gone to the Western Front, where help was needed the most, and not the Southern Front. Soon, a man who seemed to be the commander came forward. "I am Viscount Bale Frank, the commander of the Southern Training Center." As everyone knows, the Southern Training Center is where basic military training is taught to soldiers deployed on the Southern Front. You will receive 3 weeks of training here and will be assigned to a reserve unit and spend the rest of your service period there. Attending basic military training and then being assigned to a reserve unit, the process was the same for the Western and Southern Front. Nevertheless, the Southern Front didn't have many battles and even had reserve troops, whereas the Western Front had no reserve troops as they were constantly in battles. Thus, among the soldiers, a saying circulated, "A soldier who serves on the Southern Front gains a lot of weight, and a soldier who serves on the Western Front can hardly return in good health." In summary, they were polar opposites. Even the atmosphere here told Roman everything. Far from feeling wretched at the thought of being on the battlefield, people were yawning. There are some facts you must keep in mind while staying here. Whatever your status might be before enlistment, here, you are only a soldier performing military service. Anyone who breaks the rules of the training center will be sent to the Western Front as a punishment. It was funny to consider sending others to the Western Front as punishment. Still, the absurd thing was that it actually worked. Even imagining something like going to the Western Front from the Southern one was terrible. Thus, they paid a little more attention. Viscount Bale's speech was short. When he was done speaking, the troops disbanded. Everyone, unpack in the assigned dorms. The training schedule will be announced in the evening. Finally, they were admitted, and for now, they belonged to Southern Training Center. Just when Roman was about to head to his own dorm, a soldier approached him and said, "The commander wants to meet you." Roman's thought of Viscount Bale making eye contact with him throughout the speech wasn't a delusion. The first thing Roman was greeted with in the commander's room was the bright smile of Viscount Bale, which was far from seen in the welcoming speech. "Come on in." The road to the Southern Front must have been difficult. Yes. It wasn't much. "Come and sit." "Drr." Viscount Bale pulled a chair by hand. It was kind of awkward. Roman had seen Viscount Bale for the first time in his life, but Viscount Bale acted as if they were old acquaintances. "You know how excited I was to hear that you were being deployed to the Southern Front?" Roman Dmitri, the youngest ranker of the Cairo kingdom. Oh, I was so excited to know the sleeping dragon was born in Dmitri. Ah, are you fine with coffee? Yes. Discount Bale was humming when making the coffee. While a soldier could have performed this task on his behalf, he chose to handle it himself. The commander's room was instantly dyed in the aroma of coffee. He took a sip of coffee and smiled as he put Roman's cup ahead. Tack. Drink it. Actually, the reason I called you here is to ask something. Rumor has it that Marquis Benedict used his powers to place you on the southern front. Is that true? This one-sided favor had a purpose. It wasn't something huge. Discount Bale's eyes were looking at the coffee, but he wanted something from Roman. Roman didn't know for what purpose this was being asked, and seeking neutrality, he judged he didn't have to hide it. Yes. I didn't ask for it, but Marquis Benedict did do that. Is that so? Discount Bale's expression brightened. Actually, he had already confirmed the truth to some extent. Still, he had to check it through Roman, and when he got the answer he wanted, he couldn't hide his happiness. Right. I will tell you my point straightforwardly. I want to look good to Marquis Benedict. The southern training camp isn't a bad place, but it is nothing compared to the lavish life in the capital. That is why I will take care of you, so that nothing is lacking for you while you stay in the training center. I don't mean to ask for much. Just do one thing: later, when you meet Marquis Benedict, tell him that Viscount Bale Frank took good care of you. That is all you need to say. It was a straightforward and blatant statement. Bale Frank, like Dmitri, he, too, was a noble from the outskirts and had the grand dream of entering the central government. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't get into the central government. The training center was a location that received requests from numerous nobles' families, and Marquis Benedict wasn't someone he could even touch. He was the core of the noble faction. It was an area that Viscount Bale could never touch normally, and he needed a way to make the link with him. And that is what he judged Roman Dmitri to be. Marquis Benedict has done a great task for Roman Dmitri. If Roman Dmitri swears allegiance to Marquis Benedict at any time, he will be able to lead me to the noble faction. This is a rare chance to enter the central government. He had no intention of hiding the purpose. This was a deal. A deal that one got in return for a comfortable life in the south. The Southern Training Center was a place where the commander ruled. That was why, even though he openly asked for an improper solicitation, Viscount Bale didn't look the least bit shameful. Interesting. Roman kept smiling while hearing his proposal. Marquis Benedict and Viscount Bale, they weren't naturally meant to be together throughout their lives. Still, right now, he was being given a favor that he didn't have to refuse. Thus, Roman said, "I understand. I will never forget this kindness." That was all. Roman kept the smile on his face and accepted the favor. Roman exited the commander's room. He was going to head back to his dorm straight away, but just then, he met someone with a familiar face. "You were here." It was Henry Albert, the person who had caused a riot in the inn. Contrary to the appearance of him hastily running away back then, he looked calm now and said, "As I pondered my actions, I realized that I did not do anything wrong to apologize to you. In short, Dmitri is just a baron family on the outskirts, and I, the second son of Albert, said I wanted to use the inn. Does it make sense to run into a fight only for that?" Yesterday evening, Henry couldn't sleep. It was because he was angry. He was born and brought up in a rich family, so he couldn't accept being humiliated by someone from a baron family. It didn't matter to him if Roman was the youngest ranker. From what he heard, Dmitri was originally a family of commoners, so unlike him, they couldn't be called true nobles. His stomach boiled in anger, and he waited for today. When he entered the training center, he thought that even Roman wouldn't be able to mistreat him. And at Roman's blunt reaction, Henry pushed further on. "You touched the wrong person. Do you know what family my mother is from? It's the Frank family. Now you know what mistake you made?" Right, the commander, Viscount Balefranc, is my uncle. So apologize to me. I will not let this slide. Especially to my uncle. The background he believed in is Viscount Bale. Even though Roman was the youngest ranker, here, he was just a soldier and nothing more. Thus, Henry felt proud of himself. This time, he was sure of his victory. But... so? Your maternal uncle is the commander of the training center, so what? Do you not understand this situation? My maternal uncle clearly stated in the welcoming speech that anyone who broke the rules would be sent to the Western Front. The disciplines don't just refer to acting like soldiers. It includes those who don't behave as my uncle likes, and guys like you are included in that. He was frustrated. Roman was showing such a reaction even when he knew who his uncle was. Cold sweat began to drop down his head, thinking that Roman might pull out his sword again. I don't think you know what the Western Front is like. Even if you are a 3-star or a swordsman, you will die in a moment out there. You stay here and wait. I will bring my uncle and see if you can act this proud then. He took a step back to take one forward. Until then, Henry Albert firmly believed his uncle would solve his problems. Uncle. Seeing Henry, Viscount Bale smiled broadly. Oh, my nephew is here? To the general public, Henry Albert might not be much, but to Viscount Bale, he was the lovely nephew he wouldn't wish to even see get hurt. In particular, Henry resembled Viscount Bale's sister too much with his brown hair and playful appearance. But why is my nephew looking like he will cry? Viscount Bale asked after checking Henry's expression. Uncle, what would you do if someone from a baron's family threatened me? What? Who is that bastard? Viscount Bale got up from the seat. A child had threatened his pretty nephew. There was no need for him to listen to this any further. He grabbed the sheathed sword on the wall with an angry face. Take me to that bastard right now. How dare someone touch my nephew at this training center? I will crush him down. Really? Henry's expression brightened. If his uncle would handle this, then he was sure everything would work out. Once one entered the training center, the commander's orders were absolute. Henry walked hastily as he thought Roman would run away the moment he saw Viscount Bale. It is that guy. He pointed to the other person with his finger. It was Roman Dmitri. That idiot didn't run away. Seeing him waiting for them, Henry raised his lips into a smile. Viscount Bale arrived a bit late, and as soon as he saw who was pointed at the other end of the finger, his expression hardened. He closed his eyes and opened them again. He turned to look at Henry and then back at Roman. He truly wanted to deny that the one his finger was pointing to was Roman. On the other hand, Henry was waiting for Roman to be reprimanded. Viscount Bale felt lost. This crazy bastard is trying to block my growth. He made a quick decision before Henry even said anything else. Viscount Bale slapped Henry on the cheek. Whack. Along with the enormous sound, Henry's proud face instantly changed. Chapter 77. The Southern Training Center. Part 3. Henry grabbed his cheek. Feeling a tingling pain spread throughout it, he looked at Viscount Bale with a shocked expression and wide eyes. Uncle? In Henry's memory, Viscount Bale was a maternal uncle who loved him a lot. From a young age, Henry grew up watching the man do anything he asked for. Naturally, there was a time when he liked his uncle more than his parents. He was so important that he never imagined being slapped in the face by him. Tears welled up within him. It was more difficult to mentally accept the fact that he had been hit by his maternal uncle more than the pain on his cheek. Despite that reaction, Viscount Bale didn't even look at him and smiled awkwardly at Roman. I am quite sorry about this. I had to make sure that my nephew had his mind straight. He seemed to have made a mistake due to being young and immature. I will apologize. For my sake, please turn your eyes away from this. The opponent was Roman Dmitri. No one knows just how much he will develop in the future. Moreover, since he was favored by Marquis Benedict himself, Viscount Bale decided to apologize quickly. Indeed, it was a very rational decision. No matter how much he usually cherished the nephew, it wasn't enough to exchange affection for his future. In the end, even Henry's own parents would have slapped him. Henry was shocked when Viscount Bale asked for forgiveness. There was no need to escalate the problem any further. Henry's actions were like a child's pranks and would not be considered hostile by Roman. Of course, without the wise judgment of Viscount Bale, the situation wouldn't have ended this easily. Because of Viscount Bale, I will let this go. Thank you. Viscount Bale tried to smile. Seeing Roman retreating, he looked at Henry with angry eyes. Henry, do you know what you did? But how can Uncle hit me? You idiot. Roman Dmitri is a talent that Marquis Benedict is keeping his eyes on. He will do anything to get that guy on his side, so what are you doing by trying to look high and mighty by looking down on such a talented man? Henry. When are you going to grow up? There will be no problems if you act like this in the Albert family, but out here, you cannot act like this. Your family cannot protect you here. He told him the cold reality. If only the Albert family was a great family, Henry wouldn't have been assigned to the Southern Front. His parents would have pushed to get him exempted from military duty instead. Still, he now showed him the reality and the ambiguous power. Henry didn't know the reality and didn't recognize the rising power. Nevertheless, suddenly, Viscount Bale came up with an idea. Roman Dmitri may be someone you don't like today. So Henry, from now on, start training. You will be attached to the reserve forces with Roman, so try to become friendly with him. Keep this in mind, if you don't follow your maternal uncles. Advice, I will send you to the Western Front, and even if your mother begs, I won't change the decision, okay? At that moment, Henry understood that because of one mistake, his comfortable life on the Southern Front had entirely turned into ashes. After the commotion was over, Roman headed over to his dorm. Dorms were randomly assigned in the training center to all trainees, but as soon as he arrived at his dorm, Roman could see what kind of preference he was given. Viscount Bale worked hard. On the way here, he saw the other nobles unpacking in old, worn-out rooms. It was a scene understandable because of the situation at the Southern Training Center, but Roman was assigned a very neat and new building as accommodation. It was a single-story building designed to accommodate only one team. Indeed, Viscount Bale's ambition for power was truly great. It is easy to deal with people who openly express their ambitions. Maybe my life at the training center will not be all bad. Unlike the demands of Viscount Bale, Roman would not be able to give him the power to rise to the central government. However, he judged it was necessary to take full advantage of the current situation. Kick. He opened the door to the house. Inside, the soldiers were almost done unpacking their things. When they saw Roman and were about to salute him, Roman lightly rang the bell hanging by the door. Trang. All soldiers instantly stopped their work. The meaning of the bell was imprinted into their minds over the past few months. An emergency. Everyone, prepare for battle. In an instant, the well-organized place turned into a mess, and the soldiers poured their things onto the floor. They took in small things, and 30 soldiers hurried at once. Roman came out. After the dropping of the bell, as if he had nothing to do, he just walked away and gazed at the door, relaxed. How long was it? The soldiers began to walk out and lined up in front of Roman. They were all quite quick and tidy. Even while they were panting for breath, they stood upright. Roman said, 2 minutes and 39 seconds. Even though you were in the middle of cleaning the place and unpacking, spending more than 2 minutes preparing for battle is too much. I have been telling you people that the enemy will not come to us at a perfect time. In a situation where we do not know when, where, and who will attack us, we need to make sure we can prepare in the shortest time possible to survive. If it takes more than 2 minutes the next time I announce an emergency, you all will be punished appropriately. We understand. We will keep it in mind. The soldiers shouted out quite loudly. Indeed, it was a unique sight. There was no one more disciplined than Romans' troops among all the troops who followed their masters here. The Southern Training Center was called a resort for nobles. Nevertheless, it didn't matter to Roman soldiers. When Roman gives orders, they follow. It was a situation that was normal for them now. At the same time, McBurney, the general instructor of the Southern Training Center, couldn't hold back his sighs as he prepared for training. I am preparing for this kind of training. He was a veteran warrior who once served on the Western Front. As he was loyal to the nation, he himself volunteered to go to the Western Front, where battles frequently took place. And in recognition of his performance there for 10 years, he was promoted. He, who had started out as a captain, had become a commander. Nevertheless, it was only for a short while as he soon fell into an abyss. 3 years ago, the Kronos Empire decided to cross the border. They attacked Cairo, and many soldiers lost their lives back then. McBurney was not much different. Although he prevented the fall of the Western Front, he lost his sword-wielding right arm. When he felt the pain of losing his arm, simultaneously, he also felt his life as a warrior come to an end. And as the battlefield wasn't a place for the disabled, McBurney was stripped of his position as a commander. Still, the kingdom didn't abandon him entirely. McBurney, in recognition of your achievements on the battlefield, I intend to appoint you as the training instructor of the Southern Training Center. Even though you must leave the battlefield, I hope you will continue working for the future of the Cairo kingdom. McBurney's reality had changed. He felt like he still had work to do for the future of Cairo, but the grim reality was that, unlike on the Western Front, the awareness of war was far low on the Southern Front, and most of those who came here weren't here to prepare for war but to spend time in vain before heading back home. As a result, the training was a total mess. Usually, even the nobles at the Western Training Center were trained as soldiers, but the nobles here couldn't even bother to hold a sword. Furthermore, while there, soldiers trained in the scorching heat of the sun, the nobles would take shade and rest under the trees. Even the Southern Training Center's commander didn't care about it, so only McBurney, the trainer, was having it rough. What is this? He looked down at the training schedule with a sad face. The training system was planned quite well, with basic physical training for 3 weeks, but everything was meaningless if the nobles didn't train with their soldiers. War is, after all, a battle of heads. Commanders not only exist to give orders, but they must also understand the level of the soldiers and have the stamina to move accordingly and give orders without messing up their breathing. However, those who had never experienced war did not know such things. Most of them were just trash who thought wars could be won in the flash of an order. He sighed. It was only his 3rd year here, but the motivation he had was already crumbling. They should at least do the bare minimum. Still, he thought it would be the same this time. Nevertheless, while the nobles enjoyed leisure time, McBurney would still teach the soldiers. It was all because he had deeply experienced the fear of the word if. As expected, the next day, the nobles who arrived at the training ground took shade under the giant trees before the training even started. Is that so? It is. Later, when you come to our estate, I will show you what true pleasure is. You promised. I will visit you for sure. Brothers should always come. They were chatting like old friends with excitement in their voices when they were supposed to be training. And on the contrary, their own soldiers were standing and experiencing the scorching heat of the sun. Unlike the enlisted soldiers Roman brought, they were troops the nobles' families sent to protect their children. Thus, they were far from being elite soldiers. Obviously, there was no reason to send the best troops of the family to a place like the Southern Front, where no wars took place, and waste good resources out of fear. The level of the soldiers was so low that they were unable to even line up properly. Seeing them sweating even before training, McBurney only sighed. As I thought. He was hoping for a different scene this time. As it was on the Western Front, he wanted to lead strong soldiers who were loyal to the nation and feel proud of what he did, but now, he felt ashamed looking at people who were titled as soldiers but couldn't even do the bare minimum of what a soldier should be able to. What if these soldiers were sent to defend the Western Front? The Western Front's defense would collapse without holding on for a single day. This is the same nation, then how can the two sides be so different? He suppressed his emotions. As the instructor, he had to be faithful to his role. He cannot lose his calm. However, just then, unlike the clumsy ones he saw earlier, he now saw soldiers lined up straight on each side, and in front of them, there was Roman Dmitri. Even though the sun was shining brilliantly, Roman Dmitri and his soldiers were standing straight without moving a single inch. He then realized that his thoughts were wrong. This year, unlike the trash he had seen before, Dmitri's future had entered the Southern Training Center. Chapter 78. The Southern Training Center. Part 4. McBurney thought that there could be problems later on if, by any chance, Roman Dmitri was standing there because he didn't know how the Southern Training Center worked yet. Thus, he said, "Roman, Southern Training Center doesn't force training on nobles. If you do not want to train, you can watch it from the shade of the trees, just like everyone else." Sometimes there were people who thought they also needed to train and waited in the sun, only to later argue that they were being discriminated against when they saw the appearance of the other nobles. McBurney was tired of all that. Unlike Viscount Bale Frank, who was the commander, the instructors didn't have much power in the training center. Roman asked, "Are you talking about them?" Roman's gaze turned toward the shade of the trees. There were nobles who were busy talking with each other rather than coming to train on the training ground. McBurney nodded at Roman's question. Nevertheless, it was a moment that somehow made him feel ashamed. However, "I will train." Roman refused to go to the shade of the trees even though he knew the truth. He wasn't like the other nobles at the Southern Training Center. The other nobles only thought that war didn't happen here, and the commander was the one who would give orders to the soldiers anyway. Also, wasn't war something that soldiers actually fought? That was their common sense. A commander watches war from afar and gives his orders. Nevertheless, those who had actually experienced war had entirely different opinions. Looking directly at McBurney, Roman said his thoughts out loud. "You are not wrong. The enemy's attacks do not know about nobles and their identities on the battlefield. Nevertheless, even nobles should receive basic training. Of course, most have the misconception that the one who has the position of a commander is in a safe place. A war in the plains might be mostly safe. However, if one is being chased after being defeated in war, or if attacked by an enemy who came from the rear, the nobles will not be able to recover from it, let alone give proper orders due to their weak strength." That wasn't all. War wasn't always fought in plains. Often, war is fought within mountains, rivers, swamps, and other places. Thus, in order for a commander to do their job as a leader in various terrains, it was necessary for them to train in the same way as the soldiers. And I understand the training at the Southern Training Center is a process of grasping the strength of the soldiers and passing the experience of you all, who have stayed here for long. Thus, you don't have to do that for me. I decided that I needed training, so I am ready for any training, regardless of my status." Roman was done. Now, it was as if he wouldn't say another word until training started. As Roman stood and gazed directly into his eyes, his heart started to pound intensely. Ah! McBurney had fallen in love with who Roman Dmitri was. People risk their lives even for those whom they barely know? Even the day before, McBurney's motivation was down on the ground. His skepticism as an instructor was huge, but after hearing the words of Roman, he felt his pride rising again. He has a perfect grasp of my intentions. It was the first time he met a person who thought in the same way as himself, despite him being a noble and saying he would do the training voluntarily. It wasn't just an impulsive thought. McBurney, who had served on the battlefield for a long time, eventually developed an eye to see if the other person was being honest or not, and now, Roman's calm eyes did not show someone who did not know about war. The enthusiasm he had a really long time ago was finally revived within McBurney. He thought it would be extremely helpful to someone like Roman, so he wanted to impart the best education he could to Roman. I was only going to conduct moderate training, just like any other day. But I will have you do the most difficult one from now onward. Even if a disaster hits the southern front, I will make sure you have the minimum physical strength and military knowledge to survive and win against your enemies. I will do the best I can." With that one decision, McBurney opened the gates of hell for the trainees. The first week of training was focused solely on physical training. Originally, the trainees only had to warm up with a simple run, but now, right from the start, McBurney told the trainees to put heavy things on them and climb up a mountain. The purpose of this training isn't simply to improve your physical fitness. Wars can break out suddenly, and you all, who do not know when they will, sometimes will have to climb mountains with heavy items. In this exercise, you all will not only strengthen your bodies but also learn how to climb mountains quickly. Regardless of the weather, you all will have to climb a mountain at least once a day from now on. Tack. 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 Hundreds of soldiers ran down the mountain with pale faces. As if climbing up was not horrible enough, they now had to run down as well. Still, this was just the start. The soldiers, whose stamina had completely depleted right from the start, simply filled their stomachs and immediately gathered at the training ground. This training is quite basic. War is a battle of mental strength that will never end. So, in order to fight to the end without losing your concentration from sunrise to sunset, you need to test your limits. From now on, you all will proceed with infinite slashing training without any counting. I will warn you in advance, do not give up. Those who do give up will have to proceed with extended training in their sleep time. Ah. Fuck. Curses came from all over the training ground. Normal soldiers could not refuse the orders of an instructor, so they could only accept the harsh reality they had to go through. McBurney's warning wasn't in vain. Many soldiers fell in the scorching sun. Some were shivering and even trembling. Nevertheless, he continued to train people. On the battlefield, you will have to go through a more brutal time. The Southern Front was no exception to war. As much as he was moved by Roman's words, he wanted to share the reality he had seen on the Western Front. Quack. I need a break. The trainees' voices sounded like they were dying. They were only conscripts. As they weren't actual soldiers and didn't even receive proper military training, they couldn't keep doing the training that drove them to the extreme. McBurney even thought he would stop the training if most had similar reactions and couldn't go on, but he couldn't. It was because Roman soldiers, from start to finish, were perfectly carrying out the training while being led by their liege. Hook. Roman swung his sword. It was an action he had already repeated hundreds of times. Even though his skin was red due to the heat from the sun and his entire body was drenched in sweat, he did not stop training. Furthermore, he wasn't even using mana. He was just immersed in pure physical training. Simultaneously, the soldiers surrounding Roman only looked at him, bewildered. They couldn't believe Roman's actions. Even if he rested in the shade of the trees, no one would have said anything, but he was out there training with the soldiers. Just like one refines their sword before fighting, it is necessary to strengthen the bond between the soldiers and myself. Heavenly demon Baek Junhyuk didn't rise to the top as soon as he was born. He started from the bottom up, so he knew what emotions and thoughts those receiving orders had. They always complained, even about the most trivial things. Even today, while the soldiers were training in the intense heat of the scorching sun, their leaders were sitting and chatting in the shade while smiling. Wasn't it natural for resentment to rise from within them in such a situation? Still, it didn't mean that there would be extreme results such as a revolt, but surely, the weight of their leader's words would turn lighter to them. Suppose there is a leader who is training with them and another who isn't. Whose command would the soldiers follow? It was a difference no one could overlook easily. They would undoubtedly follow the orders of the leader who suffered with them, and it wasn't uncommon for the outcome of a war to be reversed due to such differences. This didn't mean that he should always suffer with them, just until the trust was established. And if it was judged that the action was sufficient to affect the war, there was no reason for the commander to move directly to win. It was a complex reasoning. Still, while training himself, Baek Jung-hyuk never avoided such things to strengthen his solidarity with soldiers. Seeing him at the forefront of his soldiers, even the other demonic sect members began to follow him. The conquest of Murim wasn't done by one person alone. The trust between him and his men, built from the bottom up, was what had brought that true. Yuk, yuk. Yuk. Now, even Roman soldiers looked like they were going to die. Like other soldiers, they, too, had the urge to give up, but they couldn't because of Roman. When their leader was working hard, how could the soldiers give up? The soldiers of other nobles had collapsed on the ground already. They were resting on the ground, gasping for air, but Roman soldiers couldn't do that. That day, not a single one of Roman's soldiers sat down until the training finished. The first day of training was finally over. After sunset and finishing their training, the soldiers came out to wash themselves. Swish. This feels nice. Those who said the training would be fine were lying. There was no mention of us rolling on the ground like this, the soldiers grumbled. Fortunately, Roman soldiers looked fine. Was it because they did not like this? A soldier under another noble, who was there, said, "Why do you people only think about your own position? Can't you cut down a little bit on your enthusiasm while thinking of other people?" Throughout the training, they couldn't openly demand Roman soldiers to rest. McBurney wouldn't have pushed the training this much if Roman soldiers had given up, but they were training so perfectly that he didn't even allow any leeway. Most of them came to hate Roman soldiers while panting on the floor. They thought Roman soldiers' stamina must have been built perfectly over the years, but the other noble soldiers didn't have anything like that. And because of that, when they saw Roman soldiers training without any issues, they were annoyed. And the moment they met in the bath, they began to raise their voices. "Unlike you all, we were conscripted. Our training period was so short, so how the hell do you think we can withstand a training of the same intensity as you guys? If we had enough time, we all could have done the same thing as you all." Just then, hearing those words, one of Roman's soldiers came forward. "I am curious about those things you are saying. Just how much time is enough training time for you?" The soldier of Roman who came forward looked menacing. His body reflected well-sculpted muscles. It proved he had been training hard for so long, and he had muscles any man would admire. The soldier flinched when he saw him. He felt pressured the moment he saw the other soldier's body up close. "We only had 1 year of training. We are different from you people, who have been training for years. So, take it easy. That way, the instructor will lower the intensity of the training for all of us." 1 year, that wasn't a short period of time. Hearing those words, Roman's soldier laughed. The moment he heard they had been training for a whole year, he wondered how could one sound so silly. Was it because he remembered the past? As a soldier of Roman, he couldn't stay quiet after hearing something like that. Don't make excuses like not having enough time. We didn't even have 1 year of training, unlike you all. It has been less than 1 year since we first began to train together. No, to be precise, it has been only 3 months since we started to train sincerely. And you all are saying you didn't have enough time to prepare? Don't get me wrong. You people had plenty of time. The only problem is that you just didn't do your best. The soldier of Roman who said that was also one who had successfully passed the enlistment test. He was once an ordinary human who trembled in fear while taking the test. He was Henderson, who had come from Lawrence after watching Roman's actions. Chapter 79. The Southern Training Center. Part 5. The day the notice of Roman enlisting soldiers came, Henderson thought, "I want to be a man of Roman Dmitri." He still could not forget what happened at Lawrence's Square. Henderson and the others were only having a normal day until Roman came in and trampled the peace. And people covered their mouths at the sight of Ben Miles, a heinous criminal, being dragged along by the hand of Roman while his blood constantly dripped down on the ground. And soon, Roman executed Ben Miles. He said he couldn't forgive the blood Fong, who touched the people of Dmitri, and didn't even mind getting his hands dirty with blood. When he saw that look, Henderson couldn't help but admire him. Because of that reason, Henderson, who was originally from Lawrence, instantly applied to become one of Roman Dimitri's people. A soldier doesn't need to have great qualities. That was the common thought of those who applied. They thought Dimitri wasn't a huge family, so it wouldn't be tough to become one of Roman's soldiers. However, what happened? Even after he managed to pass the test, Henderson had to face many more difficulties. It was mainly because all those who had passed the test were far from ordinary. Not to mention Chris and Kevin, who had demonstrated their aura in the war. There were veteran mercenaries like Lucas and Pookie. In the end, there was only one person there who could be called normal. And that was Henderson. In fact, if that was all, Henderson felt like he could somehow survive as one of Roman's soldiers. However, the training truly stunned him. "Can I even stay here?" was his thought for the first few weeks while training. Looking at the other soldiers who were so much better than him, Henderson even thought he didn't deserve to be here. It was also because, actually, unlike those who had strong hearts and didn't even blink an eye during the test, he looked like he would pee out of fear. His heart still raced as he thought about it. In a group that was full of wild predators, he only thought of himself as a herbivore. He pondered it for a long time. Finally, he went to Chris and said, "I am sorry, but I don't think I am qualified to serve Sir Roman Dimitri." It was a realistic decision. Most would have even considered it to be correct. Nevertheless, Chris asked, "Why do you think so?" "I don't know why. Maybe it is because, unlike the other soldiers here, I am a beginner who doesn't even know how to properly wield a sword. I cannot keep up with the training process, and it doesn't make sense for me to waste the resources of Sir Roman Dimitri. I think I was arrogant to even want and come here to follow him when all I did was farm all my life." "Are you saying that because you think your level is below that of others?" "Yes." If Chris had heard that before he met Roman, he would have agreed with Henderson. However, even Chris had become different now. "When I think of Kevin the first time I saw him, he was nothing more than a kid who had passion in his eyes. To be honest, I couldn't understand why a man like our liege would even bring in a kid from the slums. But does Kevin still look weak to you?" "No. In that short time, Kevin grew into a warrior no one can ignore." "Is that true?" "Of course, it is. It is a funny thing, but I was the same back then. When I first met the young master, I was ignorant and ran toward him only to get my teeth broken. At that time, I was a frog in the well. And just like the current Kevin is different from the Kevin of the past, I have also changed from the past by the guidance of our liege. So, what are you worried about? The young master has accepted you as a soldier. You might be humble now, but you have the potential to grow, just like Kevin and me. Roman Dimitri, the young master we serve, has the ability to make it possible." Badump. His heart began to pound intensely. Kevin was truly someone who was recognized by everyone. But even Kevin was someone who was but a small child before he met Roman Dimitri. Can I also be like that? He wasn't sure, but after hearing Kevin and Chris' case, hope bloomed in his heart. To be honest, I did not believe in myself. As a farmer, I could not even imagine being as strong as you and Kevin, but as you have said, I will trust the eyes of our liege, Chris. He chose me from so many applicants, so he must have a good reason. I will focus on my training again. And in the future, I won't come looking for Chris for such things. Henderson's mindset changed entirely that day. And from that point onward, Henderson's life began to change as well. The last few months, Henderson was obsessed with training to death. He did it all in order to not bring shame to Roman. Even if he puked all day, even if he fainted during training, Henderson continued to go against the odds and eventually caught up with his colleagues and created his current body. Because of that, when he saw the other soldiers, who had a whole year to train, complain, he couldn't help but raise his voice. What do you people think war is? When you are on the line of life and death, where you can only survive by killing others, will you say that you cannot fight because you only had a short training time? Pathetic bastards. 1 year is the time when you can farm until the harvest comes. You all are just making pathetic excuses for the comfortable life you have been living and saying that you had no chance because of your life as conscripts. When a war begins, one needs to defend their life. Even if they were drafted, how hard they worked could bring about a vast difference. However, what were the soldiers of other nobles doing? They were just holding on to saying that they didn't have the minimum qualifications. Seeing them complain about such stuff, Henderson could only frown. For all of you, who have lived their lives without training hard for a year, today's training must have been quite difficult. But if you know that your current state is lacking, isn't it a common reaction to try and catch up with us instead of blaming us? Why? Are you asking us to come down to the same level as you now? Roman told them earlier that for their time on the southern front, they had to prepare for war. Roman soldiers all trained as if they were on a real battlefield and, although not perfect, they were sure they would have a chance of survival and winning, if a war truly broke out. That was why they couldn't understand the other soldiers' reactions. Being in the same room as them and hearing their naive thoughts made their skin crawl. Even though Henderson's words were brutally offensive, the soldiers of other nobles could only stay silent. The fact that Henderson's preparation period was less than even half a year made them all go silent. Truly idiots. Once he said that, Henderson turned away from them. Even if their attitude didn't change, Henderson would still train with the same passionate attitude the next day and the days after that as well. He would do so because it was the will of Roman Dmitri. And because of that will, Roman soldiers thought that the war had already started. The training continued. It was quite extreme. Still, even though the intensity of the training increased day by day, Roman soldiers only clenched their teeth and continued to train hard. The nobles who watched the training noticed the gap between them was too much. Was it because their pride was hurt because of the difference? They, while watching the others training as if they were on a battlefield, complained, "Why are they all overdoing it?" Right. This isn't even the Western Front for them to be that dedicated. It's the Southern Front, which is far from war. However, it seems like our men are suffering because of them. Well, those born shallow will do such things. If they don't act out like this, how will the Dmitri family even get recognition? Right. Ha ha ha. They openly mocked Roman. The Southern Front was known to be a place for the nobles to spend 2 years of vacation at. Rather, it would have been understandable if this was the Western Front. There, people even got rewards for doing such things, but the Southern Front was unlike that. Roman, who was under the sun, had a bright red face. Seeing him training so hard with the soldiers, the nobles thought he was foolish. Nevertheless, among the nobles under the shadows of the trees, there was a noble who, rather than ridiculing him, looked worried. That noble was Henry Albert. How do I even win the heart of someone like him? Right, the current situation was quite odd for him. If he was interested in pleasure, like other nobles, Henry could have struck up a conversation, but Roman was only sweating and working hard. Henry's thoughts had changed from those he had the first day. Actually, if it wasn't for his uncle's orders, even he would have been making fun of him. Nevertheless, he couldn't. When he thought he would be assigned to the same unit as someone like Roman, his head started to ache. No, was I ever this sensitive? If he came to the Southern Training Center, it should be to speak and build friendships with others. In the end, common people do not know how to relax and take it easy, eh? I don't know now. I guess things will work out in the end. He lay down in the shadows of the trees as the sun was quite hot today. He could hear the soldiers shouting while training to cheer themselves, and he lay down in the coolness of the shade. He thought after a good night's sleep, maybe this tedious training would end. At that time, on the front line of defense on the Southern Front, Cairo's soldiers watched the border. Ugh, I am exhausted. Why? Don't even ask that. I only slept for 2 hours as I was busy playing cards with the second squad. The soldier had quite a tired face. He didn't even look at the border. He only gently checked to see if there was anyone under the fortress wall. and he then pulled out a water bottle hanging from his waist and opened up the lid. Sniff. The smell of alcohol irritated the tip of his nose. The soldier next to him was dumbfounded. You brought alcohol? Does it matter if I brought it? We need to let go of being so strict. Does it matter if we have a drink in a place where no one will come anyway? And rather, this is good for work efficiency. It is better to have a little drink and get up than work while feeling sleepy. But if you don't want to drink, tell me. I will just drink by myself if you don't want to. Gulp. He drank it. A stimulating sensation went down his throat. And seeing the other soldier like that, the other one couldn't resist it. Just one sip. Then, here. On the southern front, this was a common sight. The long time of peace had given birth to a sense of complacency. They became even more complacent as there were no major problems during their years of service yet. But they didn't see it. While drinking, the shaking at a place of lush vegetation at the border had gone unnoticed.